They got married before they fell in love. This is their second marriage. They were once forced together by a promise. They didn't like each other at that time. They had too many fights and misunderstandings. When the promise was no longer binding, they chose to divorce. They thought they'd never get involved again, but the seed of love had already taken root in their hearts. They met again because of love. They lived and died together. Now they're finally married. Their faces were full of happiness. Carl drove Annie in his car. Wherever there are more people, he goes to show off. When he got home, Carl got Annie a professional makeup artist. Annie looked stunning. While everyone was busy, Carl took Annie away from the wedding. He took her on a cruise ship. He prepared a romantic date at sea for Annie. Annie had never felt so happy. It was all like a dream. They made a promise to the sea that they would love each other forever until the end of time. At night, the wedding began. When the priest asked them if they were willing, they both said yes without hesitation. The priest made a solemn announcement. They are officially married. The guests began to offer their blessings. Carl kissed Annie affectionately. After the wedding, they didn't go home. They spent their wedding night on a cruise ship. The next day, Carl woke Annie up with a bouquet of flowers. Annie woke up with a happy face. When she looked at Carl, her eyes were filled with love. Carl took the opportunity to ask for a sweet kiss. When he got to shore, Carl told everyone, "This beautiful lady is my wife." Annie told Carl she wanted to go to college. She wanted to major in architecture. It was her lifelong dream to design houses. Carl said that he was very supportive of Annie's dream, but he also told Annie, "It's a lot of work to go to college. I don't want you to work too hard." Annie said, "It's not a big deal." Although Carl was reluctant, he enrolled Annie the next day and drove Annie to school himself. Carl can now be said to be truly doting on Annie. It wasn't even time for Annie to get out of school. Carl came to the school gate early and waited for her, but he waited for a long time and didn't see Annie come out. Carl couldn't help but get anxious. But when Annie came out, Carl saw Annie with a male teacher. They were laughing and joking, and Carl was so jealous. When he got home, he said the male teacher was very knowledgeable. He has an interesting way of teaching. A lot of us liked his class. Carl felt a little sick inside. Carl lay in bed, but he couldn't sleep. All he could think about was the man talking to Annie. Carl was not happy. What's the big deal if he only teaches? Although he didn't feel good about it, Carl took Annie to school as usual the next day. That day, Annie told Carl that the male teacher had come to the house because I started school late, so that I wouldn't fall too far behind in my studies. He came to the house to help me with my homework. When Carl heard that the teacher had come to the house, he immediately said, "I have to thank him." As soon as they met, Carl immediately took on the role of host. He told the teacher, "I'd like to thank you for coming to my home and tutoring my wife. I thank you on behalf of my wife. My wife is lucky to have a teacher like you." He was afraid the teacher wouldn't know about Annie's relationship with him. The teacher was a little embarrassed. Annie didn't think it was a good idea. At night, she told Carl she didn't want him to take her to school anymore. She didn't want her classmates to know she was married. Annie was afraid that they would look at her differently. And even though Carl didn't want to, he did what his wife told him to do the next day, and arranged for a chauffeur to take Annie to school. When she arrived at her class, the students were very excited today. They were told there was a new male teacher. I heard he was very handsome. They were all excited to see what the new teacher would look like. Annie didn't care. How can he be more handsome than my husband? But when the male teacher came into the classroom, Annie's eyes widened.